Welcome to the Glazier Nation Podcast. My guest this week is Wade Arnold. Wade is the commercial sales director for Quikserv and U.S. Bulletproofing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of attention right now to bullet resistant, hardening the target, and not just in the construction industry, but kind of nationwide in the news. And while we're not here to discuss the cause or the solution to these issues, we did discuss how the glazing industry can help. We also discussed some of Wade's best practices and career advice for people in the glazing industry, or really just anybody. Wade's an all-around good dude with a genuine love for our industry. I had a great time chatting with Wade, and I hope you all enjoy the podcast. And of course, the Glazier Nation Podcast is brought to you by Glazier Nation. You can go to glazernation.com to check out all their offerings. At home all week?
At home all this week. Yep, this week.
And all next week?
And all next week.
So what does being at home entail versus being on the road for you? Like, kind of what's the difference of what you're doing?
Well, I'm still doing essentially the same thing. It's just not being in front of customers out there across the nation. If anything, I'm interacting with my team more at the facilities. Whether I'm at U.S. Bulletproofing or Quickserv, I get to interact with my teams in person versus being on the road, and then I get to see my loved ones back home as well and spend more time with them.
Yeah, that's what's important for me. I not so much now, but like when my boys were younger, and you'll probably get to this too, because I think you mentioned you were aiming to have a family at some point, but there's this phase where they're 2 or 3 where it's a lot of it is mommy, right? And mommy is an angel for being able to do this stuff and have this patience, but there'd be like a reason I needed to leave town, and I'd be kind of excited to get a little time away. And then after like 24 hours, I'm like, okay, I want to go home. Like you miss home. So it didn't last. Wade, give us kind of, this isn't an interview, not the resume style, but what is your role in the glazing industry, and kind of how did you get into the glazing industry?
I'll start with how I got in the glazing industry. I actually interviewed at Quikserv. I've been laid off by a former company and interviewed at Quikserv. I'd never really had much experience in the glazing industry other than working for a former company that had owned a glass company. But no, I interviewed with Quikserv, and then all of a sudden I was in the drive-through transactional window business. And the next thing I know, I'm a member of the NGA, and just it's amazing at how my path has led me to the glazing industry, but I would have never thought of joining the actual glazing industry. And what I do is I'm the commercial sales director for Specialty Fenestration Group, which owns Quikserv and U.S. Bulletproofing. So my day-to-day is interacting with both of our facilities and our team members within the production facilities, within our sales team, with executive management, investors as well, and then being the liaison for our field strategy execution as well.
Yeah. Did you know what the glazing industry was?
Other than just building houses and buildings growing up, I really didn't know too much about it. So it's amazing to me at the world that I've grown to love and know now, just in the short tenure that I've been in this industry compared to some people that have been in it all their lives and all their careers, or second and third generation owner of glazing companies or factories. It's incredible at how massive this industry is, just from a local perspective all the way up to a global industry.
Yeah, it's super interesting how it's that large, but it's kind of niche, and it's kind of, we did a Glazer of the Year series, and one of the questions we were asking the glazers was, how would you define a glazer? And I forget which one, but one of them kind of said, the definitions that you look up, they don't really do us justice. And I've tried that before. You Google glazing, and I think your first 3 hits might be like donuts before you start getting to glass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, or the other one that you get when you tell people you work in the glazing industry, you worked with glazers, they all just think Glazer's the liquor distribution company. No.
Oh, is that? I did not know that one.
There's one out there that's a liquor distribution company, and I've always got that one as well. As you work for? No, I don't work in the liquor business.
No. Hey, back up to you mentioned being laid off. Without getting into that pain point too far, what was that like being laid off? And then what type of career advice would you offer to somebody that might be in that same situation?
Well, being let go or laid off, or any sort of leaving a company is tough. Even if you've left by choice, it's leaving people you've known, people you've grown to love and interact with day after day. It's a tough position to be in. There's a lot of unknown that comes with a lot of uncertainty. At some points, you feel like there's a failure point in your life. If anything, you should look at it as an opportunity. Another window opens of some sort, and no pun intended being in the glass industry, but I wouldn't be where I am today if that scenario hadn't occurred. And I think things come into our lives to help us get from one place to another. And that just happened to be something at the time that for me I saw it as turmoil. I didn't know where I was going next, what my next step was. I was applying for graduate school at the time and figuring out how I was going to pay for that. But it led me to where I am today, and truly a family and a place that I call home with my companies. And I'm very fortunate and very blessed to be in the position that I am, even though at the time. But my advice to people in that position would be endure. Do not give up. See every day as an opportunity. Look for a chance to improve day after day, whether that's searching for new jobs, that's mental and health fitness of any sort. Look to improve each and every day. Wake up and seize the day, but you have to endure. There has to be a mental toughness that goes along with it, because at the end of the day, you will still be improving. You still will be moving on. But don't give up on yourself just purely because a company didn't see your worth or your value of any sort.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I was trying to look it up. I didn't get it. There's a quote. It's something about great change requires great tragedy, or maybe it's vice versa. Doesn't matter. But the point is a lot of times, like you mentioned, in the moment, it feels like turmoil, it feels like failure. But if you kind of can get out of that and look, you might have a better opportunity that you maybe just weren't prepared to step into, but now you kind of have to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to quote, I know everybody's watching this show right now, and it's Ted Lasso, but to quote Ted Lasso, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And,
Yeah.
and I didn't give up, and I worked incredibly hard, and I got incredibly lucky to land where I am today. So everybody endure if that happens to you, and go find the next best opportunity for you.
Yeah. So Quikserv and US Bulletproofing, give us kind of the elevator spiel of what those companies do.
Yeah. So Quikserv, founded in 1986, both companies, I will say, were founded by Glazers, but Quikserv was founded on the premise of creating drive-through windows that are sold and implemented in the fast food chains around the world, and got into the transactional space of the business as well from a security standpoint. And then US Bulletproofing, founded in 1991 by another glazer by the name of Ken Sampson. He started creating security windows and doors for embassies around the world, and then got into the domestic market as well to start, hardening educational facilities, office buildings, military, federal government, of any different type of building that needed security windows and doors. So you're seen as a fenestration company that are providing both transactional spaces and security to protect all the occupants on the secure side, or in the secure side of those buildings, whether it's interior or exterior of those buildings.
And those two companies are owned by one company, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So and then your employment is with that mother company?
Employment with both of them. It's Specialty Fenestration Group. They own both Quikserv and US Bulletproofing.
Okay. Yeah, that's just me figuring out how it works over there. So you mentioned hardening the target. This is obviously kind of a unfortunately, it's a news topic in our society right now with schools in particular. So, what can US Bulletproofing, or what have you been doing, or what are the trends going forward to help with that, to help harden that target?
Well, it's what we can do is let people know first and foremost is that glass can be the solution. We have always been seen as the weak point in the wall system. We are always targeted on educational facilities, on buildings of any sort, whether it's doors, storefronts, or curtain walls, or transaction windows. We've always been seen as the target and the weak point in that wall system. So I would say education is key, whether you are educating an end user, an architect, an installer, a general contractor, a school board member, just someone in your community. Let them know that we can be seen as a security solution. So yes, absolutely, in educational facilities, that continues to be a prominent topic throughout the U.S. And even around the world globally as well is how do we protect educational facilities? How do we protect our children, our administration, our staff, anybody that's occupying those buildings in those educational institutions? Because those institutions should not be targeted by active shooters, but unfortunately, they continue to be. I don't say that I have the end-all solution, but I do have a solution to help prevent those active shooter threats from entering those buildings.
Yeah, and it's kind of probably levels, right? Like my products that we do here in Florida, we're primarily looking at hurricanes, right? And it's, something I have to tell architects frequently is it's not hurricane proof. So it's different applications and education that we can apply to whether it's my situation or what you're doing, hardening targets with security products. That level of education, I guess you're informing them kind of the options. Is that correct?
Yes, it all is situational. That's what it comes down to. What your threat actually is, whether it be storm impact related, whether it be ballistic rated, bomb blast scenarios, or purely just people rioting and looting, you need to assess what your actual risk and threats actually are. And there are organizations out there that provide risk assessments, not just for educational facilities, but other types of institutions, military, government, office buildings, retail of some sort. PASS is a organization that has just recently come up now, which is National Overwatch. That's an organization that's certainly come across everybody's desk as far as looking at it. And they're nonprofit organizations, and they're not trying to profit off these loss of lives or these active shooter threats. They're simply trying to prevent the next one. That's their main goal and their mission between their companies. And I think that's what people need to realize is that these threats are not going away. They will continue day after day. And unfortunately, it's unfortunate and depressing to watch the news sometimes.
Sure.
But you look at those scenarios about when and where they happen. We never know when they are going to happen, no matter what that threat is. But I absolutely encourage people to assess your buildings. Look at where your threats are coming. Don't reduce the scope. Don't eliminate ballistic rated products just because you think something, isn't going to occur. But you just have to think about these scenarios of when or where they may happen.
For U.S. bulletproofing, is it all ballistic, or is it like a level of, forced entry is first, and then there's like different ballistic levels?
It's a combination of 4 different categories when it comes to security for U.S. bulletproofing. You've got any type of product that's ballistic rated between levels 1 through 8. And then you look at bomb blast scenarios as well, whether they be intentional or accidental. You look at storm impact, for your market where hurricanes are so prevalent, but people think go beyond hurricanes. Look at tornadic conditions, look at hailstorms. And then you look at forced entry as well, just people rioting and looting, occupy Portland, occupy Chicago, and people just trying to raid federal buildings or retail stores sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but no, you look at those 4 key categories. That's where U.S. bulletproofing is most prominently known and focuses on.
Yeah, I'm kind of asking that question from a place of, we'll get, whether it's a building owner or architect or something, they're looking, what they're looking for is probably a level of forced entry, kind of just we're not talking level 8 ballistic there. But what they ask for is level 8 ballistic. And it's almost like the education process, but kind of, in the reverse direction in that way. So I'm sure you have to do a level of that as well too, right? Like someone may ask for ballistic resistance, but that's not what they actually mean.
Yes and no. Essentially, yes, you will have people that will ask for burglar resistant glass, forced entry rated glass, storm impact, ballistic rated, not revealing all trade secrets by any means whatsoever, but there can be a combination of different types of glass that will protect against multiple different types of threats. You can get ballistic rated systems that will protect against storm impact scenarios and incorporate forced entry ratings within the building as well. Bomb blast scenarios certainly help protect against all those different types of threats that I just previously mentioned. So you can incorporate glass. And I think that's the versatility that people forget around glazing, is the fact that, you still can allow for a lot of daylighting, a lot of clear lines of sight within the building, and still incorporate security into the exterior facade of the building as well. So you're still achieving that high performance value that these building owners and government entities are trying to enforce upon us from a code standpoint. But at the same time, we can still incorporate security into those buildings.
Your territory, Wade, what are you national?
I'm essentially North American. I'm in and out of airplanes and hotels all the time, but I pretty much stay domestically. Absolutely.
Okay.
I support a lot of our agency and distribution partners out there across the country.
Okay, so we covered at the top of the show that you're home this week, you're home next week, but otherwise you're flying around the country.
Yes, typically in and out of airports, airplanes. Just that's my life right now. Like we talked about families and kids one day. Absolutely. I plan to stop traveling one day. It's kind of the bug for me right now, but absolutely I will stop traveling at some point.
So let's say someone just got hired for a larger territory. Let's say someone got hired and they have a sales territory that requires traveling. Maybe it's new to them. Maybe it's a larger territory than they had. What's your advice to this person? How do you deal with all the traveling?
Well, I would say this. One, it's going to take you to have the drive. You truly have to have that drive. And if you don't wake up every morning and just having that aptitude to go out there and meet people and travel and make the sales, then this may not be the role for you. It may not be the life for you. You've got to find the drive. You also have to be patient. You have to be resilient because sometimes your travel plans aren't going to go to according to schedule. Meetings are going to get canceled. Meetings are going to get pushed. Weather's going to set in. Plane flights are going to get delayed. Layovers. So you have to be resilient in that fact. Second point would be meet people. I meet hundreds of strangers every single year. Multiple different people every single day, but don't be shy and don't be afraid of strangers. Get to know people, get to meet people across the industry and get to know them as well. Not just your customers, but your industry, cohorts and your colleagues as well. Third would be get involved. I would say, get locally involved, get nationally involved. I'm wearing it right now, my Texas Glass Association hat. Thanks to my man, Kyle Sharp, last week gave me this hat. And it's one of my favorites now. Get involved at some of your local organizations in the NGA to find out what's truly going on in the industry. Get to know your people out there. And then finally, I would say, find time for yourself. Find time for yourself. That way you remain centered and grounded. Make sure you find time for your loved ones, because at the end of the day, those are the people that are going to be there for you. When you get home, whether you're on the road, make sure you're at least calling home to check in with those people, because those are the ones that truly have helped you get to where you are today. But that would be my advice to people who are taking on new territories, or you're rethinking your territories, you're re-strategizing or moving around out there in the industry. Just those would be my key points that I would give advice on.
Those are all great points. And one of them, I think we're publishing on Sunday. I had Adrian Lowenstein, and he also mentioned making time for yourself and non-negotiables. And I think that's important. I think that's a good one. The other stuff too, you could apply some of that just for someone starting in sales, right? Like that, just let alone the travel, just starting in sales, being resilient, meeting people, all good stuff.
Yeah, it could in sales or even just within your own company. Whether you're hired onto a new company or someone new is hired in your company, get to know them, invite them in, make them feel part of that family. And I think that, every business should have some sense or some type of core value. Part of their mission statements is make everybody part of your family, because you are going to at some point spend more time with your coworkers than you are your own family, it feels like. But get to know those people, whether you're in sales or they're strangers, they're within your company. I think that's truly going to create a lot of the bonds and make things that are special and make people feel valued. That way they want to work that much more out there in the industry and work that much harder for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. And the same goes with stuff like we're doing right now, right? Like meeting more industry people outside your company. It gives you a sense of connectivity with the industry and maybe adds some meaning to what you're doing. And I don't know. I agree. I think it's all good. All this traveling you're doing, meeting with contractors, meeting with architects, meeting with designers, meeting with building officials, whomever you're meeting with. And maybe this is going to be specific to your niche industry of transaction windows and security windows, but what trends do you see in the glazing industry amongst your travels?
Within the glazing industry, the first and foremost that continuously is asked about and desired and wanted and questioned is security. I was in DC earlier this year for the NGA Advocacy Days, and that was one of the prevalent topics. Unfortunately, it was just kind of in conjunction with at the time, right after the Nashville shooting. And that's certainly what everybody wanted to talk about. But security is first and foremost, that's always prevalent, whether it relates to my business or not. But when it comes to glazing, absolutely everybody wants to discuss security. You look at the second thing would be sustainability. We always are seen as the weak point in the wall system, but at the same time, we are one of the most resilient products out there when it comes to building envelopes. That's why people are building with more glass and less metal. And let's be honest, every different type of building product out there is fighting for their wall share. And I know glass certainly goes up against masonry and stucco and eaves and metallic members of some sort, but I think sustainability is a huge component going forward, that glass is absolutely going to be the most resilient product in the industry. We are constantly improving. We are constantly seeing in finding better ways to make our glass stronger, lighter, faster. I mean, look what they're doing as far as harnessing the energy of the sun to incorporate into the buildings for energy conservation.
Yeah.
The third component that I see coming down on top of security and sustainability is energy conservation. And then the other trend that I always hear out there when I visit with customers or installers or essentially any fabricator or vendor is qualified help and lack of education. Those are always two key components that people want more education because they want to advance their career. They want to know what's going on in the industry. They want to know what's going on in their company. They want to know why they're building these windows and doors or fabricating this glass and where it's going. Qualified help and lack of education are two other components that I see out there in the industry that are constantly circling the industry as far as conversation and where they're trying to find help. And then once you get that help, are you truly training those people to offer them the assistance for your company? Because people have always been fearful to think that, what if we train them and they leave? Well, my biggest concern is always, what if we don't train them and they stay? So I always look at educating our industry, our people, the individuals that I work with day in and day out. I learn from them. I just feel like a sponge and I want to squeeze people so I absolutely know what they know, and I can learn that tribal knowledge, because that's something that's tough to pass along. But those are essentially the topics that I hear out there in the industry when I'm traveling and what I'm privy to, if you will.
Yeah, and I want to open up the third one there a little bit, the qualified help and the education. When we talked previously, you'd made a comment kind of tongue in cheek about having a master's in your role. I don't know if that meant you were overeducated for the role or what it was, but my question, I guess, is two-prong off of that is what is kind of the value of the college education system right now, and is there more value in getting into a trade? Or I don't know, maybe a better way to ask that is how do we get people into trades, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my first thought is that everybody's education viewpoint and value is different. I certainly saw college and graduate school as something that was very important to me and to advance my career. But I've also met some amazing people that just purely went to high school and started their own business and have become very successful because they had that drive. I've met people that have just had undergraduates. I've met people that have doctorate degrees, and I know you have as well, and spoken to some of them. So I think everybody's viewpoint of education is different. I think it serves different people for what you're trying to achieve in life. It just, something for me, though, was going back to graduate school, because when I graduated college and went into starting my career, I started getting passed up for career advancements by people that, just because of tenure of company, not because they were certainly qualified. But I decided to go back to graduate school because I wanted to, increase my chances of career advancement and knowledge base that I could apply to companies, or even potentially starting my own company one day, just because I had that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
But when it comes to trades and getting into the glazing industry, or really any construction trade, I truly do believe that, you look at plumbing and electrical, they certainly got in on the forefront of getting into the trade schools. And then glass, unfortunately, was late to the ballgame.
Yeah.
I think the glazing industry could very well, inject resources and time and effort to educating the trade schools to say, laying up glass and fabricating glass, whether it's in a factory or on a job site or in a sales office or out on the road, there are viable opportunities in the glazing industry. But I really think that, educating a lot of the trade schools out there and letting them know that there are opportunities for you within this industry, I think will not only serve those individuals as well, but it will serve our industry as a whole, because I just think there's such a diverse world out there and such a diverse job force and workforce out there that I believe that there's some great people that are just up and coming in the trade schools, that are up and coming in the industry, that I think we should absolutely take advantage of. It's almost like you look at different types of sports out there. Did Kobe want to play football and baseball and basketball, or did he just want to go play basketball? Did basketball happen to cater to what he was and what he was trying to achieve in life? I think the glazing industry can cater to a lot of those different types of sports or trade schools out there, so we can start to harness and bring those individuals into our actual industry.
Yeah, I think those are good points. I guess part of me, I'm not sure. Our trade schools, it almost seems like we're past that, right? And I see opportunities more with like, I think I made a video recently. There's a company, Raise Robotics, and they've got this machine that can autonomously install curtain wall fasteners, right? And you control it with a PlayStation 5 controller.
Oh,
and
man.
And like what you just said about Kobe, like to me, that's what a 19-year-old without direction could see, and then say, "Oh, I get paid $20 an hour to do this." I don't know if that's low or high. You're in Texas?
I am in Texas.
So you guys have Buc-ee's. Yeah, we all my customers always compare whatever they're paying to Buc-ee's, and they're like, I can't compete with Buc-ee's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think yes. I think trade schools, yes. I think technology can help kind of cater, like you said. And then just kind of last thoughts on college, like, yeah, I don't think college can hurt you. I think it can make you more well-rounded. Obviously, it can educate you. As long as you can, A, afford it, B, take it seriously, then yeah, go do that. But it's like that same 19-year-old that I just mentioned, if that person doesn't have an idea of what they're doing and they just go take a $40,000 loan, that's a recipe for failure.
Yeah, you have to be prepared for that, and you have to know what you're getting into, whether it's a financial decision that you make, because there is going to be some financial burden that goes along with it as well. I'll tell you, the reason I went to Syracuse University for my graduate school is it was online. I didn't have to go to an institution and sit in a class, and you talk about technology.
Yeah.
I got to travel for my job around the world. I wrote papers while I was sitting in airports or on airplanes or in Mexico.
Yeah.
I was taking exams in different time zones, but the technology allowed me to achieve that. And at the same time, it was half the cost than going and actually sitting in an institution week after week and hoping that I would learn the material. I got to do it on my own accord. So finding that drive that we were talking about earlier, because that 19-year-old that you keep referring to,
yeah,
the mind you have now, and put it in a 19-year-old body.
Oh yeah,
what you could achieve today. But yeah, absolutely. I think technology plays a lot into it. I think, like you said, college makes you well-rounded, but I've got some of my greatest memories from those institutions and going that route. But I think at the same time, if the good Lord had blessed me with a different route and I hadn't gone to college or, focused so highly on school, that I still probably had great memories without that. It all just depends, again, on what you want in life and where you can go and what you truly want to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you have a plan and you want to go to college. That makes a lot of sense. But, if you're not sure, maybe go try a trade, right?
Yeah.
You can always go back, right? You don't have to go to college at that age. You can go when you're 30. You can go when you're 40.
You can. You can even go with specialized classes. I've got some great people that work at our factory that, just started by pushing the brooms or fabricating metal, and now they're taking engineering classes to become a drafter. So again, you can even take specialized classes, but they worked their way up within the company and worked hard to have those promotions and saw what they could achieve and saw where they wanted to be. And did that take some sweat and some elbow grease? Absolutely it did. But you know what? I'm incredibly proud of what they're achieving today. And man, I hope they don't stop. I hope they try to, maybe one day run the company or run a department if they can. It's amazing what the stories some people have out there, whether you started with nothing and came up and started your own business, whether you went to college or got a PhD. I think there's some amazing people with all different types of stories out there in the industry.
Yeah. And it's probably not just our industry, right? I mean, if people want to work hard, I feel like I feel like that's still a core part of America, that if you work hard, you're going to be able to advance yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't limit yourself. Again, like I mentioned earlier, endure, be resilient, whether you're traveling for work, whether you're going to school, whether you're making those decisions, or where you want to go next in life. You just got to endure, because you never know what that next door is going to open for you as far as an opportunity.
Yeah. Wade, anything you wanted to plug or add?
No, I'd love to give a quick shout out, if you don't mind, to the people that have helped me get here today.
Sure.
My family, first and foremost. I come from a big family. I come from a family full of strong women, where I've been outnumbered and outvoted every day of my life. Texas A&M, Quikserv, U.S. Bulletproofing, Syracuse University. Most importantly, my girlfriend, who continues to support me and endure all my travel as well. But no, I really appreciate you having me on the show today, man. I think it's great what Glazier Nation is doing, and truly spreading the great word of glass and the mission and the values you guys stand for.
Yeah. I think the idea keeps getting kind of larger and larger of how we can bring people together through information and communication, and try to inspire people to, as we just discussed, better your career, better yourself. So appreciate having you on, man, and best of luck.
Absolutely. Thanks, my man. I appreciate it. Good to talk to you, and go Glazier Nation.